my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, to President Thornburg, faculty and staff, and students, and especially to the SGA of Littlejohn College, to all the men and women who have the privilege to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, to my lovely wife who's here with me, and may I say to the #1 church family in the world, Mount Calvary Baptist Church. And to all of you, my Father's children. We are gathered in this place to honor the memory of a man who, through his actions and words, helped shape and change our cultural climate for the betterment of all humankind. During the 1950s and 60s era, at the height of the civil rights movement led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it was a tough time in our nation's history, especially here in the South. It was a time when blacks and whites were so-called separate but equal, a time filled with agony over the pigmentation of one's skin, a time of racism and discrimination, a time of prejudice and injustice, a time of hardships and tears, a time of bloodshed and deep infested wounds. It was a time in our nation where blacks and whites who stood for righteousness and justice were tried and tested, mistreated and abused. But I'm so happy to report today that they didn't give up then, and we certainly cannot give up now. We cannot give up now, especially when some of us have settled for less and have lost our identity by getting caught in the midge of mediocrity. Especially when the world is moving on a rapid pace from a least of these mentality to a self-seeking frame of mind. We cannot give up now, especially when there's still a great divide among our children in the area of educational achievement concerning academic subjects of reading and math. And yet it seems more affordable to close down schools in order to construct state-of-the-art correctional facilities, to lay off qualified teachers, but yet hire detention officers. We cannot give up now, especially when we tend to still see the color of one's skin, no matter what side we are on, rather than the character that's demonstrated by one's lifestyle. And we fail to realize, even in the 21st century, that we are still one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Therefore, it doesn't matter how many King celebrations we have or we attend. In order to reach our full potential and be what God has ordained us to be, we still have so much work to do. Because if you have not noticed, most people have settled for the slow drag in the sunset of self-righteousness. Some have stopped only to hold hands with jealousy and suspicion. Yet there are those who are caught in the cartwheel of hatred and unforgiveness, while others have fallen asleep in the bed of regret, refusing to get up because of the bitterness toward the situation that we all are facing. Somewhere in this race called life, we have dropped the baton and have started believing the lie that we are disqualified. It doesn't matter our pedigree, it doesn't matter our dialect, or which side of the street we live on. All of us have come too far to roll over and play dead now. Yes, we still face many challenges. The economy still has its wrinkles. Social injustice is still loaded with spots, and it remains a constant struggle to make the ends meet. Or in the words of Dr. King, the American dream for many has become the American nightmare. And allow me to drop a footnote, difficult challenges are nothing new. God did not create us to throw in the towel. But everything we need to succeed, everything we need to live in the abundance of joy, everything we need to be assured of better life is already in us. The determination, the drive, the optimism, the resiliency, and the persistence is already in us. But my brothers and sisters, I will say this until the day I die. We must go back to the basics. We must go back to where everything starts. We must reestablish the home by setting decent moral standards and high expectations. What happened to the home? What happened to the family structure that was instituted by God? What happened to the table of communication? What happened to the motto which reads, a family that prays together stays together? What happened to the father who, no matter the situation, would hang in there? What happened to the mother who would sacrifice all she had in order to keep the family strong and healthy? Because let the truth be told, as long as the home training is dormant, society will remain dysfunctional. And if you haven't heard by now, there's a death warrant out for this generation of children. And for our children to live and not die, no longer can we blame them or can the blame fall upon their shoulders. Because God never intended for the child or children to raise themselves. But the proverb says, train up a child in the way he should go. Now is the time for fathers and mothers to take our rightful place and take our homes back. God intended for parents not to be a buddy, but he intended for parents to be the ones who nurtures and cultivates the child. It's all right to say no. Let's participate in this. Everybody say no. Yeah, that word still holds value and authority. It's all right to tell our daughters they are queens who are destined for greatness. It's all right to tell our sons they are kings who are able to transcend all barriers. It's all right to get involved with our children's education by being there and by encouraging them that a good education is not an option. There's nothing wrong with them using their minds to dream, because if they continue to dream, then our dreams will live on through them. And if home is going to be what it was created to be, then we must put God first. For Joshua declares, for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Not only that, but now is the time to rejuvenate our love for one another. There's no greater gift to give than to love one another. For the second greatest commandment says, love your neighbor as yourself. So before I can love you as my neighbor, I must learn how to first love myself. And too many of us find it difficult to love ourselves because we are still dealing with the dirt of our past failures. We must stop blaming ourselves for what we did or did not do. And if we are to be free from the shackles which bounds us, then we must find the strength to get up and dust ourselves off and open our eyes to the brand new opportunities standing right in front of us. And understand that when God created us, he did not create a mistake, but he knew exactly what he was doing when he was doing what he was doing. So every time we get a chance, we ought to thank God that he made us who we are. Regardless of the hand that life has dealt us, we ought to still be able to say, I'm still here and I'm still standing. When we learn how to love ourselves because we are participating in a relationship with God, then we can travel down the road of loving one another without any strings attached. It's called God's love, agape, unconditional love. Because no wall should be that thick to keep me from loving you as my brother or my sister. And if there's any wrong that's occurred in the past, Dr. King reminds us that we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. For the person who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. Besides, let the truth be known, there is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. We don't win through division. We win as brothers and sisters, united for a common goal. And that common goal is perseverance. Like the song says, if it had not been for the Lord